there's like this very simple formula to an ad in the US, and it's...
I've never heard anyone completely assassinate a country's way of doing advertising in the way you did. You distilled down the magic, the art, the science into the truth.
You can't handle the truth!
It's just a very traditional marketing technique. We like familiarity, we like nostalgia.
You know, it's big bet advertising. It's winner takes all, zero-sum game type stuff.
The most effective thing you can do is...
Number 1, number 2, number 3. Memes and Machines, episode 24. We do a Super Bowl breakdown, our top ads, the ads we hated. Why do Americans get advertising so wrong? The more important point. We deep dive into agencies, freelancers, in-house, big agencies, small agencies. We answer the age-old debate of which should you use, when, at what stage of your company's journey. We talk about the king of social media, Mark Zuckerberg. Is he now getting desperate, or are we seeing a really authentic side of Zuck? And finally, X. What is happening? Creator revenue shares, platforming chaos, everyone's leaving for Farcaster. What does this all mean for marketeers?
I just won't shut up about Farcaster.
Hashtag ad. Honestly, Farcaster, if they don't... I know you're doing this for bragging rights in future Catman's years. We're going to be sat in some bar in Williamsburg and you're going to... You know that time when I told everyone to go on Farcaster? But yeah, they need to give you your props. Or at least a t-shirt or something, bro. At least a t-shirt. Come on.
Look, Matt, we're here to talk about marketing. I'm spending a lot of time marketing on that platform, so I'm going to talk about it.
I'm here for it. Catman, good to see you. I am a fan of your lighting right now. Tell me you've invested in a state-of-the-art studio or you are sat in front of a window. I can't tell.
I'm afraid I'm sat directly in front of a window. Is the correct answer to that question. Mate, I'm a big believer that sitting in front of a window beats any ring light any time of the day. So you'd be amazed the gymnastics I'm doing right now to face this window. It doesn't make sense in the layout of this room whatsoever, but it makes for a better picture.
I am guilty as charged. I have caught light one time, seen myself on a Zoom and thought, I'm going to be uncomfortable for the next 8 hours while I take calls. Very uncomfortable. My neck's going to hurt. My posture's going to be terrible. But I'm going to cut that light.
That looked great.
That was my way of saying you look good.
Thank you, man. This is very, very unkempt. I haven't shaved in a few days. It's been stressful. It's been Super Bowl week, so you know it's always a busy one.
What was the atmosphere like in the city?
To be honest, so I mean, it's always buzzing. There's always tons of people. Everyone's always traveling somewhere on Sunday to watch the Super Bowl, so you get that kind of like buzz. You get that atmosphere. The bars are full. I just think the Americans get it wrong by doing it on a Sunday. And so everybody's always kind of got their foot a little bit off the gas. And so you don't have that real kind of feral World Cup final or Champions League final on a Saturday night feeling, you know? So it is what it is. But, you know, I turned up to a friend's house and must have been about 15 people in there. Not one person was watching the football. It's an excuse for friends to get together, eat snacks, and then just the football's on in the background. It's there if you want it. But it's very odd sports culture around the Super Bowl. I've never quite been able to figure it out.
Yeah, every time there's a big significant American sporting moment, I would remember just almost having a lackluster experience. I get the house parties are great, the get-togethers are great, but when you try and go to a bar, you either got to show up ridiculously early. I suppose you could say the same of any sporting event, but my experiences, and it may be because I don't care enough about the sport to ever make those commitments to get comfortable for those things. But on the topic of Super Bowl, a big thing in Super Bowl is ads. What did you think this year? I've heard mixed reviews.
Yeah, it's probably the only event in any country where people look forward to and discuss the ads. It's a little bit kind of nauseating, and I think it exemplifies America's love for capitalism. But great for advertisers like us. I'd say it confirmed it confirmed a belief I've had for a while, being in the US and watching American TV. The interesting thing now is that streaming services now mostly have ads, which is a little bit sneaky. You're starting to see ads sneak in on a lot of streaming services, and then they're kind of like charging premiums. So I've consumed a lot more advertising than I used to in the US. And I remember turning to someone and saying, there's like this very simple formula to an ad in the US.
Yeah.
And it's random celebrity appears, kind of awkward meta self-referential humor about the fact that they're in this ad, little kind of smirk to the camera, which reminds me of like The Office, like Jim from The Office or Pam from The Office, and then the kind of like awkward, sound treatment where it's like a cricket or somebody drops something in the background, and then product. Honestly, every single ad has that same kind of map formula. And the Super Bowl just took it to the next level. Every single ad was like, how many random nostalgic celebrities can we fit into 30 seconds? And whoever, I don't know, creativity kind of went out the window. There was no real thought that went into it. It was, who's available? Who have we got on the end of the phone? Who hasn't already accepted 10 other ads? And let's just stick him in front of the camera and hope for the best.
I've never heard anyone completely assassinate a country's way of doing advertising in the way you did. You distilled down the magic, the art, the science into
hundreds of millions.
the truth. Yeah, look, I often think, having spent a few years in the US, the advertising standards were just poor. I was never a fan of the formula that you describe. I always felt uncomfortable. I think the data is that, think of TV advertising. They have a different media network in the US. It's very fragmented from, say, a radio, local, regional. The same with kind of any broadcast medium. The way you have local celebrities, radio DJs, you have TV channels that are kind of institutions amongst the populace at a regional level. And then obviously you have the nationals. So you have quite this fragmented, I suppose, media landscape. But you layer that on top with, and I believe the data is it's something like 90% of all TV ads on news networks is funded by pharma. So you just have these, I remember my favorite one was like, remember the song Happy for L. Williams?
Yeah.
So you're happy. And it was just like someone dancing around a garden, classic family in the US, you're happy. And then you just had 30 seconds of disclaimers about death, poison, side effects, torture on it, and just happy playing in the background. And I just thought, this is peak American advertising that I am witnessing. It was so bad, it was actually ironically good. And memorable. I'm recounting the story. But anyway, dude, back to the Super Bowl. So you weren't a fan of anything. There has got to have been one ad that you liked. I know you're trashing the whole event, but give me one thing that you did like.
Kanye West's ad. That's my favorite. I don't know if you saw that.
I saw. I did see. I don't know what's the truth and what's not the truth, because I didn't watch it live in real time. I watched like I stayed awake for a little bit of it. So I saw the Kanye clip going around where he's basically to a camera saying "Buy my Yeezys" or something, or like GoYeezy.com. Was that a real ad that aired on TV?
Yeah, it was a real ad. So they paid for the Super Bowl placement. He got out his phone and said, "We spent all the money on the placement. Here's the ad." And I think that is somebody who recognizes that he is the message, he is the medium, doesn't need, he understands more deeply than ever that people just want to see celebrities, and he is one of the most famous people on the planet, so he doesn't need to do anything apart from speaking to a camera, and it worked.
Well, it's the counter signal, isn't it? It's on brand. I assumed that was just a joke. I didn't think that was real because I saw that and thought, you know what? I'm gonna put my stake in the ground and say this was my favorite ad. So I didn't go through them all, but I watched a number of ads. But you never know what's real and what's fake and what was from last year and what was from this year. I wasn't as connected to give these specific takes, but yeah, I also rate that. Did you see I suppose not directly linked, but did you see the Liquid Death?
I didn't.
Hijack. So Liquid Death basically went onto eBay and put a listing and said, you can bid to be on our packaging and boxes amongst the shipment. And we're doing this because we have a greater reach than the Super Bowl. Yeah. So basically brands were bidding. And this is smart for a number of reasons. Number one, I think the last bid I looked at, and this was maybe yesterday, was at $220,000. So you're basically getting someone else to fund your advertising. Win. Number two, very on brand. They've earned the authority to continue to be, irreverent and do these attention hijacks. Number three, I thought original storyline. So if you read the subtext that underpin that, it's not unique necessarily to use eBay in a novel way to sell something novel, but combining that and pairing it with what I thought was unique, another brand come advertise on us because we can give you a greater reach than the Super Bowl. I thought that was cool. And yeah, overall, it had me speaking. I thought it was witty. There was some supporting content of the reveal, and there was a few layers. And I always think through the lens of the pitch team. I was like, I would love to be in that room because I know how we would go about, showing the insight, really selling the mechanic, and then you get to see those ideas live in the wild. Conversely, there were some ads that were championed. I think one from CeraVe, where is it Michael Cera, the actor?
Yeah,
he's become. I can see the pitch team. It's rooted in social listening. People were talking about, and he just comes and owns the moment. And it was okay, but to your point, it's just star power, overly simplistic, semi-funny line.
Yep.
And then premium placement. The worst of the bunch I saw was from a tech company, Squarespace.
Yeah.
They basically didn't do anything new. I think they had Scorsese in the back of a taxi just for the last 5 minutes, and it was the most corporate. And Super Bowl is not a place where you don't show up. It's big bets.
Yeah.
It's big bet advertising. It's winner takes all, zero-sum game type stuff. And I admire those brands that do compete in that space, but some of the losers were shocking.
Yeah, I think with that, there's basically two camps, right? You have that formula we talked about, let's get a nostalgic celebrity to hold our product up. And then you have the counter signals. So like you said, like Kanye West doing that. Duolingo, they had a 5-second ad, and it was the Duolingo owl, his ass grew. They had implants or something. I remember last year Coinbase did a really great one where they had the QR code. So it's you can see basically which you have to choose one direction you're going to go in. Are we going to really try and cut through? Are we going to follow the formula? Because I criticize that formula, but I imagine it works. I'm sat in the room, right, with my friends, and their eyes light up when they see Michael Cera. And it's just a very kind of traditional marketing technique. We like familiarity, we like nostalgia. And I will say that the scary thing it started to do was, I think we all started to suddenly realize our age a little bit, where we're now the ones, we're the dominant household members, we're the ones with the disposable income, and so now they're starting to, Usher was the halftime show, and these celebrities we grew up with are now the people on TV. And a good observation you made is that it wasn't any hyper relevant people. It wasn't like Ice Spice, it wasn't Pink Pantheress. These kind of Gen Z celebrities. Because Gen Z don't hold the spending power yet. But in 10, 15 years, that's probably when we'll see them in the ads.
I've never heard anyone, again, you're doing this, you drop such a subtle flex there. You were like, I'm the one with the disposable income. Man makes it to the 1% club, and suddenly he's dropping disposable income. He's having big brands drop Super Bowl ads aimed at you, man. All for you. Yeah, you know the age thing. I saw a take on LinkedIn and it was championed where I've never seen more criticism of Super Bowl ads than I have this year. So I think consensus is the standard wasn't as high. And I love the phrase that you do, the formula, which is celebrity novel humor, and the other is the counter signal, which is I'm going to do something different. You had Reddit in the same space. Remember off the moment where Reddit became popular through COVID, like really had a reemergence as a cultural zeitgeist. And they went, we can't afford this ad, and did this like little 5-second thing with tiny text, and it got everyone talking. So yeah, if you want to win at Super Bowl, throw your hat in one of those camps and pray that your money is not wasted.
We need one more though. Like I think we need a third camp. I think that's what we're looking for next year. Who's gonna do something that's really gonna cut through? That's really gonna get people talking. I think we haven't had that in a few years.
Yeah, I'd say Coinbase was the closest thing of like the simplicity. Yes, it was a counter signal, but there was a QR code. And if you think of the context of the world, we've just been trained the behavior through COVID to love, hate, and leverage QR codes. So I think there was a number of layers to that. It starts to get interesting when you think about more immersive experiences. We've had a lot of debates in our group chats about virtual headsets and spatial computing and Apple Vision and Oculus, and it was interesting actually. So did you see the Zuck coming out party where he kind of gave his review? It was kind of a the right way of saying it. He kind of gave it was a review, product review of a competitor. Yeah, as a tech billionaire. What do you think of that?
I mean, I'm a big Zuck fan. That's the first thing I'll say. I think he's I would never bet against him. Huge respect for him. And yeah, it was interesting. It was the first time you've seen probably seen like a huge CEO review a competitor's product. And I think the first thing it does is good signals, right? Like this CEO is in the weeds. Like he's really caring. He's got his hands on the competitor's product. He's trying to better his own product. I saw two very distinct camps of reaction to this. And on one hand, people were massively praising that we had this really authentic feeling reaction to the video. And if you think about when I want to figure out what piece of tech I need to buy or I want reviews, you go to YouTube now, you go to tech reviewers who give their own honest, kind of impartial opinions. And it felt like that. It felt like one of the big tech reviews. And so I think there was a lot of praise that he understands that is how the tech culture operates. And he was playing into that really nicely. And it felt honest. It felt like he gave praise in a lot of areas to the Apple Vision Pro, which I think was really important. So you had that one camp who said, yeah, this is great. I love this. And I'm never going to bet against Zuck. Like he's probably going to win. Like I love, he's in the weeds. He's really pushing this. And then the other side was the complete other side of the coin, which was this stinks of desperation. Like winners don't need to look behind them. They just win. And, this is somebody who's kind of desperately trying to show that their product is competing with what is probably going to be the category leader. And it was really interesting because I kind of saw both sides. And, for everything that Zuck says, I will also say that there is a kind of aesthetic and a beauty to the Apple's product that he just doesn't compete with. And so no matter what he says, I've seen plenty of people wear the Apple Vision Pro out in the wild. I've seen Casey Neistat ride around New York on his skateboard with the Apple Vision Pro headset on. You don't see that happening with the Quest. And that is, I think, because it just doesn't look great. Apple Vision doesn't look perfect, but they've made it look like a pair of ski goggles. There's kind of this avant-garde fashion side to it. And Facebook just doesn't quite compete there. So I'm sat there listening to everything he's saying, and I'm like, there's nothing you can say that can really, I think, shift a lot of people's opinions in terms of what's cool. Like, I'm going to buy the Apple Vision Pro because it's cool and because it's hit that cultural zeitgeist in a way that the Meta Quest hasn't.
If you were to get off the fence and not play both sides of the coin, did you think it was naff and desperate, or did you think he was authentic and landed it? What's your personal opinion?
I think it was a bit naff and desperate, is my personal opinion.
There we have it. There we have it. I was waiting for that.
Yeah. And but like, like I said, I'm a big Zuck fan, and I respect somebody who's in the weeds, and I respect everything he's doing. But I saw the video and thought, just ship a great product and market it, and this will come.
Yeah. The distinction I tend to make is I'm of your opinion. It stunk of desperation to me. I did acknowledge that there's maybe a sincerity to it, but I think when you sit there and I'm saying that out loud, and then I'm actually changing my mind in real time. That was probably one of the first. No, the reason I said that, I was recounting my feeling, not my logical mind, breaking down this as a marketeer and from a comms standpoint. And I just went, I saw a side of Zuck that I think I liked, because Zuck is a monster. Do not let the robotic veneer, the achievements that man has made, the decisions to rise to where he has, and love or loathe him, you have to respect what a monster he is in business. So there's an insincerity when he comes out, and like, if he doesn't say like, I think we're better. And I did think it was a bit, I think there was a bit of me when it's kind of funny that he just keeps plugging himself 7 times, we're 7 times less expecting. I was expecting more. So maybe I'm changing my mind in real time. I'm going to go the opposite of you and say, actually, I think for most people, I like it. But I will raise a point around, and you kind of touched on it there. Oculus, and it sounds really bad for me to say, doesn't seem to have a brand. It builds products. And what Apple do better than anyone, everything they do is rooted in the signal that it sends when you're holding or wearing or using. And I think there's an important lesson for marketeers. Not only that you can transcend your functional benefits, because actually, if you listen to the words Zuck said through his breakdown, this thing is 7 times more expensive. You can basically do everything, if not better, on this device here. And everyone just goes, yeah, no, but I prefer the other one. That's the truth, right?
That's
and design is a big part of it, because design is an element of brand and feeling and association. And it's the promise that Apple are making to their customers. They're going to create something that looks good. Although I will say, AirPod Maxes. I have AirPod Maxes, and I've been told they look like ear defenders. And I actually did realize I don't look cool in Air Max. I don't look cool in them. In my mind, I thought I looked cool because they're beautiful. I put them on. I do look a little naff. I'm going to be honest.
You look like you're on site at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Yeah. It feels like if I have high vis, people are going to stop me and tell me to get back to work. Like that's...
I'm with you, man. I'm a big Apple guy. AirPods, iPhone, Mac. But, I don't like the Air Max Pros. I think I agree. I don't like the square shape, so I have these Bang & Olufsen.
Yeah, but that's very Brooklyn of you. By the way, my favorite thing about Apple Vision Pro is now seeing them out in the wild, or seeing people create content of them out in the wild. Yep. I must have seen so many stories of like headset on, someone pinching the screen.
Yep.
And they're like, "You okay, babe?" And you see, there's this. It really is a dystopian reality now.
But I think that's the big point for me, right? Like, Apple released this product, and immediately there's content everywhere, right?
Yes.
People producing content. Casey Neistat's riding around New York. I have a YouTuber friend who went out in London with a robotic dog, walking his robotic dog and wearing the Apple Vision Pros. And then, seeded that content, went crazy viral. All the fashion creators I followed were styling the Vision Pro. Like, how do we make this look cool in an outfit? There's just this this main line to the kind of, vein of culture that Apple have, that no matter what Facebook do, no matter what Zuck does, they just don't have that. And so the product just has to speak for itself. I don't know how they're going to solve that problem. That Apple just has that clout and they have that cultural cachet that I don't think Meta are going to have, because their product's already been out for years. And now's the time where we're discussing spatial because Apple have ended the fray. It's really interesting.
The only argument I would have against that, I agree with the principles, I agree with almost everything you're saying there. The bit I would argue is, if you think about widespread adoption, the Apple products are so inaccessible. So yes, for early adopters, for the tech community, it's a very privileged position to go drop nearly $4,000 on what is undoubtedly a luxury that makes your flights a little more enjoyable, right? You drop a few screens on your long haul flight or whatever. So I go, and it was actually an episode or an interview I watched with Zuck when he was describing, it was in peak metaverse, when metaverse is the thing everyone's talking about. And I think we were both very critical of the future that Zuck was promised us in the workplace. Hey, you can go have a conversation with your colleague at a NAF desk in a boardroom. And, it wasn't the experience that maybe we hoped. But one of the things that Zuck broke down was really their focus throughout all their developments isn't about being at the frontier of innovation. It's about accessibility.
True.
And you've got to think we have hardware limitations, we have bandwidth limitations when you think about internet access, all of these things. So with technology, you tend to have multiple breakthroughs in order for the stars to align for these kind of real transcendent moments that really shift in the same way like the mobile device did.
Yeah.
There is part of me thinks that I don't know if these devices will really stick in a mass adoption way. My view is that the mobile phone in so many ways, in a practical sense, is so much superior that even if the more immersive experience adds value, it's supplementary. I tend to believe we are heading straight into a Neuralink situation where the next thing is actually just thinking things into existence,
Yeah, I actually think Facebook's most interesting product is the Raybans. The kind of the collaboration they've done now, where I think it was the artist Beeple who had a really good observation that he thinks that's much closer to what he sees the future of kind of spatial and VR, AR, because he believes that we should be starting with small eyewear and then adding product on top of it, rather than this ridiculous heavy battery required headset that nobody's really practically going to wear every day. And a lot of people kind of talked about how Apple have always released products that have then significantly improved in the future, but this was still so far away from what we can really envisage ourselves using day to day. So he believes that actually the way to go is start small, then add on, rather than start big and then take away.
Yeah, Meta made all the right moves. I didn't buy a pair, but I did go maybe 2 weeks ago, and I thought, oh, these are cool. And they're light in the context of the technology that's within them, but they are quite heavy. So you put the glasses, they are quite heavy. But what I was really impressed by is the affordability. Good, I suppose, luxury pair of sunglasses, you're talking, what, $150 to $300 anyway, or more. I think these were about $350. If you think of kind of what they can do just with the camera feature, remove AI functionality, I agree. I think we have to, the bridge between now and that kind of future state is probably something with familiarity, where there is limited friction, and it's the type of thing as you rightly pointed out, Ray-Ban partnership makes sense because I would wear Ray-Bans anyway. You're removing all friction. Dude, I read an article, it was maybe a week ago now, and it caught my eye. I pay attention to what is happening in Adland and what is happening with agencies and how they're developing, whether that's big networks, incumbents, how consulting is viewing marketing and advertising, how brands are thinking about in-housing. And there was a headline that caught me, and it was a new company called Small World. And the headline was, Mother invests in business curating micro agency teams. It's all about bespoke teams for bespoke projects. And I read the article, and I don't know anything about the people behind, but I thought, really smart. You've got, of course, brands, like people, have different needs. A great brand is very self-aware. It has context. It knows its customers. So for you to assemble the perfect team, yes, they need to have skills, but fundamentally, they're probably unique complementary skills that will lead to the best outcomes. So I read this article, I got really excited, and then I thought, great company, great vision, like the idea. And then I just realized what had happened to me. I'd been hoodwinked. Someone had done a classic marketing trick, a rebrand. Small World, and this is no offense to the team, it's basically hiring freelancers. It's like, we've just rebranded hiring freelancers. So I would love your perspective now as someone that's spent a big part of your career working within an agency selling to brands, and now you are a buyer, you're a brand, you're a marketing leader that builds marketing teams. Give me your warts and all, advantages, disadvantages of in-house marketing teams, freelance, and then agency. And obviously they're all broad categories, but I'd love to get your take on all three.
Yeah. Obviously I think I have a unique perspective because I've been so long in the agency world. So I have a very, good understanding of exactly, what you're paying for essentially and where I think it's valuable. My honest belief is the most effective thing you can do is when you're starting and you're building a team is work with an agency, because often they're going to be able to unlock a level of production and a level of creative thinking that you just don't have the bandwidth for yet. And hiring a team and building a team just takes a long time, getting that in the right place. Yeah. I think agencies are, incredible for kind of helping you get to that stage. And obviously worked with, some of the best in the business with Flight Story. But what I will say is, and this is coming from a perspective.
Watch your mouth, Catty, what you will say. You can't follow that sentence of Flight Story and then go, what I will say. Choose your words.
Oh, she's always very... I come from an agency background, and my, one of my strengths is leading a creative team. So I know how to do that. So I believe in order to move quickly and if you're especially if you're a startup, you're a tech startup, and you want to move really quickly, I believe having everything in-house is the best way to go. It's just, 10 times more difficult to do that. You have to know how to find great designers, how to find great videographers, which is very difficult. I think it's the most difficult thing, and something that I spent a long, long time doing, and probably took us 2 years before we were in a good place there. But once you have a really solid team in-house, you are able to move at a pace, and you start to kind of have this kind of production muscle that is very difficult to replicate, and is generally, I'd say, more cost effective. However, I've seen, I think there are different businesses. Like I look at a fashion brand who have 1 million SKUs and they have all these campaigns to work through. I can't imagine not working with an agency there to outsource a lot of that kind of creative thinking and production too. But if you're a small team, if you're like a startup like we are, I think if you can build a production team in-house and then use freelancers to supplement them, I think I've been on lots of calls with other marketing teams in our industry, and they say to me, what agency do you work with? Who do you guys work with? And I go, oh no, it's all in-house. And they go, I cannot believe the amount you guys produce without an agency. They're amazed at that. But it took us, 2 years to get there, to really build that team, and we worked with agencies and we worked with freelancers all along the way. So that's probably not the best thing for an agency founder to hear. That you should work with an agency until you don't need them. Basically, that's the way I've always thought about it.
You know what? I wholeheartedly agree with everything you said. I think your description, if I go from first principles and ask the question in a business, what is the role of marketing? Marketing does two things fundamentally. It builds your brand and image, your reputation, what people say about you when you're not in the room, everything supporting your brand and plays an important role in that. And it's a growth lever, helps you grow. And grow could be more customers, more users, growing your profile, you name it, helps you grow. Brand and growth, they're the two. And ultimately, those two things combined create value. And it's not to say marketing doesn't have a role on product. It's all interlinked. We are not talking in silo. It's all part. But if we say, as an organization, the downside of using an agency is you can have a dependency. I think brand, image, and growth are all very worthy goals for a business. So why would you completely have a dependency on someone else for those things? You'd want to build the skills and capabilities in-house. And not just the skills, the knowledge to know what good is. There is a difference, right? So I'm of the belief, and I hold the same opinion of you, when you are new and you start, as long as you can afford it. And again, there's a difference because you have to recognize that when you work with an agency partner, you could do your work more cost efficiently yourself, but often it comes at a cost of you don't know where to start. They will make your mistakes for you. And a good agency will be really honest about this. So my view is you work with an agency and you steal a piece of them. You learn how they think. You learn how they operate. You learn the tools. An agency's job, a really good agency, will figure out how to reinvent itself to you in order to continue to give you value. So you shouldn't be reliant on us for too long until we can continue to provide new value streams that you're either unable to do yourself or don't have the bandwidth to do. And for too long, agency partners have been used as an executional partner. You know, very agreeable to the client, kind of respond to briefs, create stuff. If you're going to use an agency just for execution, I think that's pointless. I truly think that's bad business etiquette, fundamentally. So I agree. There's a period where you should start with an agency. I think there's a big gap in the middle where you should use agencies sparingly for specific tasks or moments where you maybe don't have the skills. And then, but where I would say my opinion differs to yours is when you're a large organization, it's really important that you have counter forces to all your inefficiencies. You need objective voices. It's actually worth paying a premium to have an outside voice that doesn't have the curse of knowledge. They don't know too much. They aren't encumbered by all the restrictions that you have because of the way it's always been done, or the policy, or the hierarchy, and all of those things. So there are part of me going, agencies serve a lot of value, in developing good habits and a good marketing brand and growth culture. So work with them to learn those things. And then B, on the other side of it, to keep you honest. And great agencies will always do that. Our sweet spot is where we listen. Our job is to be the naive voice in the room more often than not. We listen, then we come at you with strong opinions, and then we contest those opinions. And as we build confidence as a partner and our relationships form, it's our job to earn the authority to really push back on you and to call you out on your bullshit. And often it's hard to do because you have misaligned incentives. And it's something I think a lot about, agency incentives. Agencies sell time. And when time is your commodity, for me, that's really agencies need to get in the habit of selling outcomes. Really, and outcomes aren't just KPIs and media results. Outcomes are, we need to get in a habit of working towards mid to long-term goals, and we need to have a measurement framework to track against that. And we sell outcomes, because if we start selling time, and that's not even I haven't even mentioned the word AI. AI is transforming the art of possible. So a time-based business model is wild, right? So for me, I have to go, I agree with you. And I would say there is a role for each of them at different stages and different user cases. And it's one of the reasons why in Flight Story, we could have launched the business and been very focused on social media and probably grew much quicker, having complete clarity and going, we do social media better than anybody else. And I believe that to be true. We do influencer marketing better. And, I would say we had the credentials to back that statement up, and we could attract a lot of business. We've been on a few journeys, but we've gone quite broad in our service offering. Because when you come to me, I don't want to be confined by my singular discipline. In part, a big part of our response is likely to be social media. And it's a big reason why you may work with us. But fundamentally, if you come to me with a problem, I want to solve you with a full stack. And there is a role for comms. There is a role for experiences. There is a role for performance. There is a role for media. There is obviously a role for creative. So when we think about Flight Story, we've deliberately taken a harder path to our long-term goal because we think it's more customer-centric. And I would argue we go into businesses very much with your mindset of saying, what can we help you with today? Because a dependency on us long-term doesn't make sense for you. However, there are certain things we do better than most, and that's where some of our retained models come into play.
Nice, yeah. And I think there's an art to working with an agency as well. Like you see a lot of, clients who they are, like you said, I think it's like an execution partner, and that's it. They hand something off, they get it back. It's not good enough. It's a very kind of like binary way of working. Whereas like the best, the people who get the most out of an agency, they see them as really like truly as one of the team. And they're learning from them, and they're sitting next to them, and they're an extension of them. And I think, having that third party is really powerful. Like you said, like I feel it now, with us as a business, but sometimes, you kind of you can believe your own bullshit. You're in the kind of, you're being fed the what's the phrase I'm looking for? You're drinking the Kool-Aid every day, right? So when it comes to talking about your product, like you said, you're too close to the thing you're building to be able to talk about it in a really kind of powerful and way that, third parties are going to understand. And so you need that kind of sense check, that reality check from a third party who are obviously experts at what they do.
Yeah. And every probably meteoric success we revere, there's a great agency that may get credit for certain work is usually a byproduct of working with a great team. They're already working because they need to know what good is. The ultimate decision maker is usually the client. I say almost certainly the buyer. So if you don't have a good team to know what good is, something I was speaking to a friend today, and I mentioned, one of the skills that's massively underrated in marketing is being a tastemaker. Just kind of knowing what good is. And tastemaker is subjective, you could argue. But really, it's a collection of understanding people, understanding the world around you, having depth of knowledge on culture and different things that are happening. So I think tastemakers are, yes, in part is like intuition. There are some people that, pair things well and just know what good is. But I think it's a skill and I mentioned it briefly, as we move into an age where AI is conceivably doing the majority of execution in many professional services, not just marketing. I think that's the direction of travel. You would argue tastemakers, critical thinkers, people that know how to ask the right questions, they're the skills that are really going to give you advantages over the next decade.
Agreed.
Dude, just to conclude, X, you're my go-to X person. Although you destroyed their ad products, said it was absolute trash, which I was surprised at. There's me assuming that because the ads are almost indistinguishable, you'd get a good return. I was wrong, apparently. But one of the debates going around X right now is the big push from Elon to entice creators and offering kind of creator revenue shares. And I think Mr. Beast was I suppose a breakout. I'm going to call it a PR stunt. Mr. Beast came out and said, hey, I can earn a lot of money. And when you actually broke it down, it was a little facetious. It was 100% a PR stunt. But we are in marketing, so we should try. Firstly, what are your thoughts on X right now? And more specifically, how do you think the battle for creator attention is going to play out? Are X going to be a major player in the next few years?
It's in a very weird place. It's a very kind of strange platform to be on right now. I think what's happened is that when you incentivize users to get impressions and be paid for that and be paid handsomely, like people are making good money now to get impressions on the platform. What then happens is they do everything they can to figure out how do we game the algorithm, how do we get as many impressions, views as possible. And when you have that, that's always been the case. People always want to get views on social media. When you literally have a scoreboard tied to your bank account, right? You just inject this kind of level of spam and gamification that is ruining the platform. And so you go on there now and it's kind of this weird, it's kind of like Instagram Reels, just short form videos designed to attract your attention. Some of it is very kind of graphic. Some of it is very offensive. It's designed to drive conversation and drive controversy. What's even interesting is that if you see something you find interesting and you want to go into the replies, usually obviously the discussion used to continue in the replies, you used to, get some interesting information there. What's happened now is that people are hijacking those replies to also get views. So I go into the replies of one video and there's like 50 other videos that people are competing to also get high engagement figures on. So you just have this kind of weird portal of low quality content, which I assume these accounts are farming from YouTube, or they're using some kind of automated system to take videos that are high performing on other platforms and then port them directly up to Twitter. And you've just got this kind of like cesspit of low quality engagement bait content. There's just so much noise and there's just so much crap now that I'm finding it difficult to get any value out of it whatsoever. What we're seeing a lot of in my industry is that there's this kind of like flippening happening where people are spending much more time on Farcaster, which I know I've spoken a lot about. But we're now seeing people who have more followers there, they have more screen time there because there isn't this noise. And so that's obviously a kind of an edge case in a niche industry, but it's interesting to see that there are people who are moving away from the platform.
Do you have an affiliate partnership with Farcaster? Are you getting kickbacks on the back end of this?
What I do know, Ollie, is that in 5 years' time, I can look back at all these videos and say, look what I told you so. So I'm going to keep saying it.
You know what? You're going to be like Gary Vee talking about skipping Uber. This is going to be your story. This is going to be your win.
Exactly.
This is going to be your win. Dude, always a pleasure. I had a few more notes that we could have covered off, but it's quite late for me, nearly 10 p.m, and I am knackered. So I am going to love you and leave you with that beautiful glow. And I'll talk to you next week.
Have a good week, man.